Hi, I'm Kristin Omdahl and welcome back to my studio. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make the beautiful Celeste beaded scarf. It's worked side to side and we're adding the beads to the edging as we go. It's a lot of fun, it's easy to do, and it makes a gorgeous accessory to wear yourself or give as a gift. Let's get started. To make this beautiful shawl, I used 1 ball of Be So Toasty merino wool and bamboo blend yarn that's #1 fingering weight. This is one of the yarns that I hand dye in my Florida studio, but I wanted to show you that I have several other yarns that are also #1 fingering weight that could easily be substituted to do this beautiful shawl as well. So over here I have Be So Lush, which is my organic cotton and bamboo blended yarn that's #1 fingering weight, called Be So Lush. Then this is the Be So Toasty, like the one in the shawl, that's the superwash merino and bamboo blended together. Then these are Be So Fine yarn, which is 100% bamboo, also hand dyed in my studio here in Florida. And this is Be So Fine Bling, which is 90% bamboo and 10% of a pure silver thread that's plied right into the yarn. Any of these would be gorgeous and easy to substitute because they are the same weight of yarn as Be So Toasty. We're also going to need a set of knitting needles that is size US 4 or 3.5 millimeter, and you're also going to need 72 12 millimeter star beads. How cute are these? You can purchase these on my website if you like. And you're also going to need a wide eye beading needle. And you can also, if you can't find those at home, you can get a 4-pack of those on my website as well. You'll need a yarn needle and some scissors for weaving in your loose ends. If you're looking to modify this pattern, one of the things that's really great about this particular pattern is that we start on the skinny side and we increase throughout the pattern, and I'll show you on the schematic what I'm talking about. So we start here at the skinny edge, and as we're increasing our rows to make them wider and simultaneously adding our edging and adding our beads to our edge, we're growing the width of the scarf as we go. And so if you wanted it to end here, you don't have to make yours the full 90 inches wide. If you wanted to make it to here or to here, it doesn't matter. You can begin, or you could end wherever you want, or you could extend it and make it longer than the one I did. And that's the beauty of starting something small and growing, is that you can choose how big you want your finished scarf to be. The next thing I wanted to show you is that you will need 72 of the star beads for this project, but you may not want to thread all of those beads onto your yarn in the beginning. It can get really cumbersome to slide those beads along the yarn as you go. What I like to do is work in sets of, say, 24. I'll thread 24 beads on my needle and then onto my yarn, and then once I've used all of those up, I'm going to cut my yarn and thread 24 more beads on, and so I'll end up having some loose ends to weave in at the end of my project, but I find that it makes the process of knitting and sliding those beads along a lot less stressful. If you prefer to not have any loose ends to weave in, you could thread all of your beads onto your yarn all at the beginning. Okay, so we're going to take our wide-eyed beading needle and we're going to thread our yarn into that hole. And you want to pull at least 8 or 10, 12 inches of thread, just so that as you're pulling the beads through, you don't mistakenly pull the yarn off the needle and have to start over. So then you're going to want to take one of your beads and find which side has the hole on it and slide your yarn, or slide your needle right through the hole of the bead and slide it onto the yarn. It might be a little snug when you have both layers of the yarn to pull through, but just stay with it and be patient. It'll be fine. Okay, and we will, if you're substituting other beads, you will need to make sure that it has a big enough hole to accommodate double thickness of your yarn to do this as well. But if you use these beads, they work just fine with #1 fingering weight yarn. Okay, so we're going to slide these all the way down to where they're only on one piece of the yarn, and then we can pull the beading needle back off the yarn and get started with our knitting needle. Okay, we're going to start by casting on 2 stitches. So we start with a slip knot, and we'll slide the slip knot onto our knitting needle. I'll just cast on a second stitch. It can be it could be any kind of cast on. I'm using the long tail cast on, but you could do a knit cast on, cable cast on. It doesn't matter for this. Now I want to show you that we are working this pattern in sections. There's a first section, and then there will be a second, third, fourth, fifth section of the pattern. And although the stitch pattern is the same, the rate of increase changes in those different sections. So although I'm only going to show you the first section, you will definitely get the fundamentals of it and understand how to follow along for the rest of the pattern when you get your pattern. So row 1 is to knit 1, yarn over, and knit 1. So you want to make sure you don't grab your tail and you grab your working yarn instead, and pull those beads down so they're not in your way. Okay, so row 1 is to knit 1, yarn over, and knit 1. Then we'll pull up on that slip knot. There we go. So we're going to turn our work, and row 2 is to knit 1, yarn over, knit 2. And we'll turn our work. Row 3 is to knit 1, yarn over, knit 3. Turn our work. Row 4 is to bead bind off 3 stitches. Now what do I mean by bead bind off? So we're going to knit 1, then we're going to slide a bead all the way up to be taut with where we just finished that last stitch. Then we're going to knit 1, keep that bead nice and taut, knit 1, and then take that first stitch and pull it up and over the second stitch to bind it off. And so that bead ends up being stuck or placed in between those 2 stitches for the bind off. And then we'll bind off another stitch and bind off another stitch for a total of 3 stitches. Then yarn over and knit 1. So at the end of row 4, we should have our bead and our bound off edge, and we'll also still have 3 stitches on our needle. I'm going to turn our work and begin row 5. Row 5 is to knit 1, yarn over, knit 2, and slide the beads down a little bit so they're not dangling on the table. Okay, so now we have 4 stitches. Turn our work. Row 6 is to knit 1, yarn over, knit 3. Should have 5 stitches. Now row 7 is to knit 1, knit 4, or sorry, knit 1, yarn over, knit 4. We should have 6 stitches on our needle now. Turn our work. For row 8, we're going to bead bind off 3 stitches. So we're going to knit the first stitch, then we're going to slide a bead all the way up to the edge of our work. You want to put it nice and taut right next to the stitch that we just knit, and knit the next stitch, keeping it taut. And then slip the first stitch up and over the second stitch. And by binding that off, we're going to sandwich the bead between those 2 stitches. Then we'll bind off 2 more stitches. yarn over, and knit 2. The end of row 8, we should have 4 stitches on our needle. We're going to turn our work. Row 9 is to knit 1, yarn over, and knit to the end of the row. The end of row 9, we should have 5 stitches on our needle. Row 10, we're going to knit 1, yarn over, and knit to the end of the row. We should now have 6 stitches on our needle. Turn our work. Row 11 is to knit 1, yarn over, knit to the end of the work. Turn your work. You should have 7 stitches on your needles now. And row 12 is to bead bind off 3 stitches. We're going to knit 1, slide a bead up to the edge of our work. You want to butt it up right to that last stitch we just made. Knit the next stitch, keeping it taut with the bead. Then as we bind off that first stitch, we're going to be sandwiching that bead between those 2 stitches. Really helps to keep it in place. Okay, then we'll bind off 2 more stitches. Yarn over and knit to the end of the row. At the end of row 12, you should have 5 stitches on your needle. So this is where we're working in the first section. In each of the next second, third, fourth, and fifth sections, we're going to be doing this exact sequence of stitches, but we're going to do different numbers of rows so that the actual sections get a little bit bigger and wider. See how close the beads are together in this section and how they're wider apart here, and then towards the end they're wider apart still. So you're going to be doing the same fundamental stitches and techniques throughout the pattern. Just pay attention to how many rows you do of everything in those sections. Follow the links provided in the video description to download the pattern for the Celeste beaded scarf or to download the Layers Knit book. You can also find information on ordering the star beads as well as the Be So Toasty yarn. If you have any questions, please feel welcome to leave them for me in the comments. Let us make time to create, share, and inspire today and every day. I'll see you in the next video.